You're listening to The Good Pod Guide, where I, journalist and podcast fangirl Lauren Windle, bring you the lowdown on the pods you should be listening to. I'm going to try and record this really quickly because I've got a stack of like 6 books at home that I need to read because technically I should have read them by now in my self-imposed reading schedule, which I never managed to keep up with. But for some reason, like some sort of wild addiction, I keep ordering more books when I know I have no time to read, even the ones I already have. So I just feel this low-level bubbling anxiety about my unread bookshelf. Does anyone else get that? Or is that, yeah, that's probably just me. So as with most millennials, to me, Jameela Jamil will always be a T4 presenter. Doesn't matter how many episodes of Happy Place she's in or how many stands she takes on Twitter. She will always be the fringed presenter with the heavy lipstick who introduced me to the OC while I ate my morning cereal. But now Jameela is an activist. She is speaking out about mental health, body image, and general feminism. And her podcast, iWeigh, shines a light on important topics, featuring interviews from experts and activists in those areas. Some of those topics include whether or not exercise is vanity, sexual liberation, racism, capitalism, you know, the stuff, all of the sort of light-hearted issues, really. Guests range from the likes of Reese Witherspoon and Deborah Messing to Joe Lycett and other people you've probably never heard of. Jokes, I've definitely heard of Joe Lycett and I hope you have too because he's really funny. But obviously he's not like Reese Witherspoon famous. I'm a bit torn with this one, I have to say. I didn't hate it, but I didn't love it. And something that I didn't really appreciate is the length of time it took to get into the meat of the podcast. So ads are really important. They're necessary for professionals to get paid. And I think people should be paid for creative content. That's not a problem for me at all. But on top of the ads, there's another 10 minutes or so of intro, which was just too much for me. And it's hard to skip when you're listening on a smartphone because the dial's so small and my thumbs are so big. So I jump too far forward and then I try and go back and I go too far back. And I do that several times before I just give up and decide to hear her out with her whole 10-minute intro. Also, she was really gushy in her intro for her interview with Danny Wallace, the guy who wrote Yes Man, to the extent that I was sort of cringing a bit for him and for her. But there are some wonderful parts. For example, when Caitlin Moran, is it Caitlin or Caitlin? I think it's Caitlin. I think I've read one of her books and in the intro it said, you pronounce it Caitlin. If I've got that wrong, then I apologize. But anyway, Caitlin Moran explains like what feminism is in a really succinct, really insightful way. And then she goes on to speak about her daughter's experiences with an eating disorder. And it's all just like really powerful stuff. There are 50 episodes so far, and she's carrying on. She's going to keep going. So there'll be plenty more, I'm sure. And they're an average of an hour each. And for me, a lot of whether or not you're going to enjoy this hinges on how much you like Jameela Jamil. She's great. And the topics that she is bringing to the fore and the voices she's amplifying are really important. And also, I actually don't know if this is mentioned in her podcasts because maybe it has been and I didn't hear that specific episode. But during the Me Too movement, she spoke about enthusiastic consent and that whole concept in such an incredibly helpful way to the whole conversation. I really rated it highly. So even though this review has had sort of like critical elements, I do think she raises some really important points that need raising. I guess in summary, I'd say like, there you go. Like there's all the information I have for you about this podcast. Make up your own mind for once. Bloody hell, I can't do all the work for you. Listen to it or don't listen to it. You know, there are good points, but things I didn't enjoy so much. So it's your life. In the next episode, I adopt the position of fun police as I use the fact that I'm a recovering alcoholic to disapprove of one of the key elements of the podcast, Martinis and Murder. Oh, the fun we'll have, eh? You can get more info on the show online at www.goodpodguide.com or follow us at Good Pod Guide on Instagram and Twitter.